Hi, and so today we are here live and direct talking about the 10 things that we wish we knew when we were starting out in property. So, this is the Property Mom podcast, and I'm joined with Bimbo Osagie, who is a property investor as well. So, Bimbo, tell us a bit about your own journey, and then we'll go into the 10 things that we wish we knew when we were getting started.
Yeah, hi, Dolapo. It's so nice to be here. Cool. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Bimbo Osagie. I have been investing in property since 2005. I bought my first property in 2005. And then I kind of took, well, it was a place that I stayed in. But in terms of my investment journey, I started at 2008. And basically, what had happened was, as my Americans would say, what had happened was, I came across the book "Rich Dad Poor Dad," as many people
A lot of
have this
people
kind of
talk about that.
experience. Yeah, and it was at a point where I thought, wow, like it just gave me a different view of what it was to be employed, a business, and and all sorts. So I started to literally change my mindset. And then in the same year, I also kind of switched jobs. I switched a different type of contract. And then that was kind of where it all started from. So I was quite interested and passionate about property, and I really wanted to own a few. So I started looking from then on, and I've been investing since 2008 to date. I was doing that alongside my full-time job. And in 2018, 10 years later, I decided I was going to give it all up. I gave up my job. I was a market risk analyst, actually, in the city of London. So I was in a pretty good job, pretty good pay. And I just decided that I wasn't going to go back to work because I wanted to do property full time. So in the last 10 years of doing this, or should I say the last 15 years, I've done quite a number of strategies, ups and downs, learned a lot, paid for education, continuously get education, uh, have my network, grow up my network in that time. And yeah, and I'm so happy that we're doing this now.
And that's
So this is
why I thought, because we
amazing.
always talk about this, right? About all the different things that we've learned along the way. So I just
Mhm.
thought, oh, yeah, it'd be perfect for us to talk about the 10 different things that, we wish starting out that we had known about. So, all of us start our journey in different ways. Although, funny enough, we started very similarly in the way that we approach just by going for it. And I'm all for going for it, rather than just sitting down and learning, learning, learning. Learning is good, and you should get educated, get the knowledge, but you should
Mhm.
definitely be acting on it. So the knowledge that is just as good as what you've actually applied, isn't it? So that's why we thought, actually, rather than just sit down and not talk about how we can help, why don't we just talk about how, things that we've learned along the way, how we can then help other people who want to then embark on the same journey to then avoid some of those pitfalls. So we'll go straight into number one. So
Now,
what is your number one thing that you
so
wish you
my
know?
number one is, I have to say, is the value of education. So like I was saying in my intro, when I found out about properties and just having to invest my money in a way that brings more money back to me, I was excited. So I thought, you know what I would do, I'll go ahead and get it done. So when I did, so there was an institution then that I had the first initial training with, and then they invited me to other trainings. So I just thought, no, it's too expensive. I didn't see the value in it. I thought, you know what, if I had that amount of money, I would go and buy myself a property. And that's exactly what I did.
I did.
So I did that. But lo and behold, after the first 1.5, I ran out of money. And I was thinking, hold on a minute. How do I get to that place that everyone keeps talking about? So, and then I think at some point, maybe 2, 3 years down the line, after trying to do it on my own,
Mhm.
and not getting far, I literally had to I humbled myself, and I found the money to get myself educated. I realized, and this is something that I say now to people, is you don't know what you don't know. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of information out there, and everyone thinks that yes, I can just Google it, but you don't know what you're Googling. And the more creative strategies, the more creative way of raising money, the more creative things in properties are not things that you pick up on the internet.
Yeah.
You've got to learn, you've got to pay somebody that has done it, has gone ahead of you. So for me, that would be my number one takeaway. Like the
Yeah.
value of education is so massive.
Important. Yeah, fantastic. And really, that takes us to number two, which for me really comes off of that, which is not doing your due diligence, right? So a lot of times when you go into property, you think, oh yeah, it seems to add up. You've done your numbers, you've done all of this, you've
Yeah.
and if you don't do your due diligence, you can really get caught out. And things like making sure that you triple check the references on, say, the builders that you're using for any refurbishment work that you're doing. Sometimes you meet a builder who talks a good talk, but then by the time you compare him to another builder and to a third builder, and you start to listen to what they all say, you begin to weed out who really knows what they're talking about, who will really deliver on the job for you, right? And it's not that you can't always get good builders. It's just that sometimes they can see green in your eyes. They know, wow, this was you. I'm going to take care of this one. So it's like you need to be very careful when you're picking up and when you're deciding to enlist a contractor, for
Yeah.
instance. Or we're talking about due diligence around even the nuances around the financial side of things. So if you're getting a mortgage, understanding whether you have an early repayment charge, that won't work if you're doing a flip. Or if you have some kind of onerous, like especially when you're doing bridging. A lot of
Yeah.
people use bridging to fund their property deals. They don't understand that there's some major risks that go along with
Oh
taking up,
yeah.
right? So it's just doing your due diligence and understanding that, you don't end up with costs that you are not aware of when you
Mhm.
started that deal. By the back end of the deal, when you start doing your analysis and seeing all the real, you always have the budgeted costs versus the real costs. Then
Yes.
then you will know that you should have done more due diligence. So it's just about being very spot on and doing everything, triple checking every single thing along the way. Yeah. So that's my
Okay.
number four.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Oh, they definitely do read you. So you got to be very careful. Mine, another one for me, which again from as early back as when I started, is not mixing friendship and business together.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I started, I had a few properties, and everyone kind of knew that I was doing properties. So of course, the usual thing, you'll get a phone call. Oh, do you have a two bed here? Do you have a one bed here? Someone I know is looking for a place, and yeah. So when I started, I could easily get those kind of phone calls, and I wouldn't do any checks,
Next.
reference checks. I just took their word for it. I just took them as good citizens, just on the face value. And I mean, on two occasions actually, I had such a bad experience. One was a very close friend, got in. They were on housing benefit, then they didn't pay, and it was just in fact, in the end, I just said, look, I would rather you just left without paying. I just want my property back. So that wasn't a good, I had to consciously I had to make sure that I didn't ruin the friendship, but it was a tough one. So not doing your well, again, I suppose it's doing your due diligence, but in terms of reference checks and just making sure that, look, if it's property is a business, right? So you've got to apply all forms of professionalism to it. If you need to do a reference check on the friend, you've got to do the reference check on the friend. If you need to take a deposit, like, treat your friend the way that you would treat a random person of the street, because this is the business now. So I had two really bad experiences when I started, and I would never make that kind of a mistake again. One of the things that I picked from that one was, the second example was where it was a two-bed house, and I rented it out to a single person, so a single guy, who was a friend's friend. And now that I'm much wiser and I'm much more experienced, I would never, I'm advising people not to do that. There is no reason why a single person would want a two-bedroom house. It's not a good. It's a red flag.
You always have
Because they might not be able to afford it. So if you have a bigger property, rent it to a family, because and when you say family, best even if it's a two working couple, because if one person loses their job, the other person can step in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And we all get caught out and that's interesting because that takes me to my number four, which is being in a hurry to get tenants in. So I think whenever we've done a project, so for those of us that do say the buy, refurbish, then we refinance, and then we now put in tenants, what happens is you already spent a lot of money. First, the money to acquire the property, then the money to refurbish the property. So at this point, you're just in a hurry to get income in. And, at the beginning, I used to be almost frenzied that, oh, I'm going to lose money this first month. Oh, I'm going to lose money. I already lost enough. Not thinking about it as a long-term investment, right? Just trying to get money in. And I would do some due diligence, but, especially if I found the person, I would do a bit more due diligence. But then I used to rely a lot on agents to do the due diligence, right? So again, it's almost like we're coming back to due diligence again. So with the tenants, right, what had happened was this was an agent that brought this guy and said, oh, I found him. You don't have to pay me anything. Even better. I was like, oh, wow, an agent that doesn't want to charge me. I should have
red flag.
So I got the guy in first month, second month, third month. Then the drama starts to happen. Oh, sorry, this has happened. Oh, this, oh, that. In the end, the guy ended up in jail. Randoms living in the property. So at some point, I was just like, how did I get myself into this mess? So I Googled his name and found out that he had actually been convicted for manslaughter. I some more, just a bit more. Let's just check in on Google for the guy's name. I Google everyone, like, just to check. But that just the real message behind the not doing enough due diligence is really the fact that I was in a hurry, and that pressure comes when you're in property to just get income in. So it's just taking that step back and breathing. And if you have to lose 1 month, live with it, and then just put the right person into the property, especially in these times. So,
oh, that must have been so dramatic for you. Okay, so my next point would be what I wish I knew when I was growing up. What I wish, if I knew what I know now, I would have pushed so much for this. It's mentorship. So again, I can also link to education, because on one hand, you can get educated, which is, in fact, I think that's the foundation of everything. But having somebody hold your hand is so key. They always say that why make the same mistakes that other people in the past ahead of you have made? It's pointless. If you've made a mistake, let me just learn from what you've learned from me. I don't need to make the same mistakes. And that is what mentorship is about. It's having somebody that would hold your hand and take and walk you through. And by them holding your hand, they already know where the pitfalls are. So they take you around the pitfall to make sure you don't fall into it. And, it makes your journey so much smoother and so much quicker. So when I got my mentor, this was so many years after, I think it was probably 2015. So yeah, I think 7 years after 7, 8 years after I started investing was when I thought, you know what, I think I need a mentor. Again, it was kind of back to that whole cost versus value thing, where the cost of having a mentor, because mentors are not cheap, they're going to give up their time. They need to be remunerated for it. And I totally appreciate that. So I had that whole cost versus value. Now I realize that if I had gotten a mentor from day one with the drive that I have and the passion that I have, I will be flying right now. But yeah, so when I had a mentor, when I got myself a mentor, it was so interesting, because on our first 2 meetings, this guy started to get me. In fact, we were looking at properties. He'd gone through my current portfolio, he found out what my goals were. And then I had told him all the properties I was looking to buy, and I wanted his help on those ones. And then he just discarded everything that I said. He went for like property prices that were like double or triple what I knew I could afford. And I'm like, I can't afford this one. Oh, this one is too complicated. And he was like, no, you're going to do it because, you need to move. I need to stretch you. I need to challenge you. And that's what mentors do. Mentors are not there to hold your hand, and they're there to hold your hand, but hold you up. They're not there to pat your back and say, oh, okay, stay where you are. It's okay. Oh, I know. It's very challenging. No, they will do that for a brief moment, but they are pulling you out of that. And that was exactly what my mentor did for me. When I got my mentor was when I started doing bigger deals. And the moment I was able to do the first big deal, I was like, wow, there's a new and a big world open to me. So yeah, mentors are so key. You have to get one.
Yeah. And no, that's very true. And it's true because they really pull you up and take you out of this sort of simple mindedness. It's almost like they make you think way bigger than you normally would have. That's fantastic. And in fact,
Mm,
when I got started, I was very fortunate to have had a mentor who kind of took me through, because I honestly don't know how I would have gone through like my first few deals
yeah,
without, because I got the builder from him, like, and so because you were getting, the thing with mentors that you don't appreciate is the fact that you get a lot of resources that you would
yeah.
have had to go out there to get. And
Mm-hmm.
you're spending money. Wait till you do a deal that doesn't go well. Then you know that you have paid for the mentor, because the mentor is seen. And now that we both mentor, right? Now that I mentor, I see some of the mistakes that, that mentees do that, immediately you see, you're like, nah, that's,
Wow.
right? So they've just saved themselves, God knows how much with that.
Yeah. Yes.
You don't
Yes.
always appreciate because it always seems like such a huge amount up front. Right? So
Mm.
there are different ways to learn, and definitely mentorship is one of the ways. And other ways are like with joint ventures with the
Yeah.
same mentors. So you'll end up also learning from
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
mentors, but
Yeah.
in it. So there are different ways to also work with mentors. But of
Mm.
course, a lot of times mentors will want to just kind of guide you through the
Yeah.
process. Definitely worth there, very, very worth it, especially if you get the right one.
Yeah, yeah, I like that because that's actually the model that I use now. So I mentor people as they
Mhm.
join venture with me.
So, yeah,
Because I'm
it makes
thinking, if the money is the issue,
mhm.
but I'm so passionate, I really want you to learn. Bring the money. Let's do a
Yeah,
JV,
do it.
right? So
Yeah,
you learn as much as you can learn on this first JV, and then you pick up so much.
so
You're
much.
talking about the mentors. Your mentor recommended his builder. That is a relationship that your mentor has built with their builder that has taken them years to build, and you've just come and just snapped this builder. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I remember the first ever mentorship that I did, and I saw what she was gaining, and I was like, wow, no, mentorship is the way forward. Like seriously. But anyway. But yeah, so that is I think that was number 5, right? So for me,
Okay.
number 6, not taking advantage of social media or marketing yourself. So that's one of my major lessons learned. So when I started, which was 10 years ago, right? At least when I
Mm,
left my full-time job, if I had been cataloging and being out there and, just letting people know, because one thing that happens is that once you start to put yourself out there, then you get a lot of business. So because of
exactly.
that, you start getting additional business, your business grows, you
Yeah.
also get access to funding. Now, funding is one of the biggest things that
I feel
we
good.
and I remember many times in those days, I used to find amazing deals. You can imagine the type of deals I found, like maybe even 5, 6 years ago. And I would be like, but I need money. Where am I going to get money from? you know? However,
Yeah.
had I been more visible, then the money would have been.
Yeah.
So now, actually, it's the opposite. It's like I have more money than I
Mhm.
can
But
deal.
buying skills.
Just being out there and being more visible and showing what it is that you do, because they're always investors. And it was
Yeah.
somebody that had told me that, look, you should never be struggling to find money for your deals. If it's a good deal, there's more money than there are deals.
For
So
real.
definitely
For
one
real.
lesson that I learned. So that's my
Mm.
number 7. What's your
I
number
love
8?
that. Oh, I feel like you shouldn't stop for that. No, that is so true because there's this thing about, I think people feel that, again, when you don't know really, that money is so hard to come by. And, yeah, at the face of it, yes, it might be because you're literally looking into your own bank account, but
Yeah.
actually, there's so much money out there. And I remember reading an article the other day, and it was talking
Mhm.
about joint venture, and it was talking about in terms of priority. In a joint venture, you need time, you need experience, you need money. And it
Mhm.
basically said money is the least of any
Oh,
joint venture.
yeah.
And people don't realize that money is the least, like that's the least thing to find. It's
That's
the experience,
yeah.
the time is so important. So, and you get that, I mean, you would have built that up. And what you're saying is, being visible. I totally agree with that. So mine is kind of off the back of yours, which is not leveraging my network.
Mm.
I remembered one of my before I had my first JV
Mhm.
opportunity. I had this big deal from my mentor, and I was like, this is too big. And then the mentor started to ask me, I'm sure you know people that have money, and I'm like, well, I don't know, do I? It actually got me thinking, and I thought, you know what? Let me see what's out there. And then I realized that actually there was a lot of people within my network that were interested, that just need somebody that they know to
Mhm.
do this with. So at the beginning, I didn't realize, even though I wouldn't say I wasn't I talked about what I did when I started. I always talked about property. Everyone that knows me always know me to be this property girl.
Yeah.
But then I didn't access this network. I didn't leverage my network in the way that I should have. I didn't leverage. I didn't have meaningful conversations that would have resulted into deals and more deals and joint opportunities. I didn't do that at the beginning. So even now, I'm learning to do a lot more of that. It's like I'm trying to catching up.
Catching up. We're all catching up. Yeah.
That's a good one. Leveraging of your network.
Yeah, fantastic. And actually, it's funny because that leads me to my next, which is going to ask for it. Do you understand? It's like, so one of the things that I know that I didn't do enough of was talking about my business and asking people to come alongside with me in the business, right? And so we're talking about, okay, leveraging of your network, but we're also talking about just talking to people and telling them what you want them to do. So in a sense, sometimes, right, you have that first conversation and they don't really understand or they don't really care for it, but you've dropped a seed. Do you understand? And that's what I talk about, going to get what is yours in a sense, because around you, it's almost like the influence that you have is there. And if you have demonstrated yourself, you've been successful in something, then going to ask people and say, look, if you have a certain amount of money sitting in the bank, then come and join forces with me. Initially, they may be like, yeah. But then you've sown the seed. And over time, that seed, and I always say that it takes a while for that seed to incubate. So if you know you're going to have projects in 18 months, you want to be having those conversations with people. Some people will jump at it, but some people will take, 12 months, 18 months to then come around. Maybe they want to watch you, see how you're progressing, how you're working with other people before they then come alongside. So I would say definitely being bolder and being more confident about what it is that you want, and then going ask for it. I think that would be my next point about things that when you're starting out, you want to be more confident about doing.
Yeah. So key. Okay. When people buy into, my husband is a social media or digital marketing expert. He tells me things like, people buy into you first than anything else. And I'm like, yeah, but I said, no, people buy into you. So when you're out there doing your thing, and you're confident, you're bold, you're getting results, people see that, they buy into that, and then everything else is easier from then on. So that, totally. Okay, we're dropping nuggets, guys. Dropping nuggets. So the last one is buying in a market that you know. Buying in a market that you know. It's like I can't even explain how important this is. So one of my friends, in fact, my first JV, which was so many years ago, I didn't even know it was called a JV at the time. It was just something that my friends and I bought. We bought a property abroad. And we were interested in property, so we've always had this flair for wanting to buy. But we thought, it sounded sexier, it sounded nicer to have a property abroad. So we started, and this was when this whole thing about buying in Bulgaria, buying in Spain, in Turkey was a big deal here in the UK. So we decided we'd jump on the bandwagon and go buy ourselves something abroad. So we did, and thankfully we paid cash. It. But then what then happened was it didn't go as planned. It really didn't go as planned. The development was frozen for years, actually. The developer was frozen, the development was frozen. We couldn't really get our hands on the property. We actually never till tomorrow did anything with the property. So it was just there. So we actually thought that we'd lost the property. So we were actually one of the fortunate ones, because I have friends that did invest abroad and lost their money. We were so fortunate that even though it was actually frozen for so many years, we thought we had lost it until I think it was this year or last year, we managed to get it sold. We didn't make any money. Literally just got it. It's like anyone that I said to my friend, if somebody would buy it for £3, I would take, because I thought I'd lost it. Yeah, we got some money for it. But yeah, it was a case of buying in a market that we didn't know. We had no idea what the market was like. We didn't know. In fact, we did nothing. We just went with the salesperson and stuff. So yeah, I would never do that again. It could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it could have been. And thankfully, you were able to get out of it. But yeah, and that brings me to the final one, which is really tied into that as well, which is about the strategies, right? And knowing the right strategies to apply. So let me give you some context. So I know when I started out, right, I thought, okay, I'm going to buy and sell. So buy, no remortgage, just buy, do it up, sell. So my idea was I would live off the proceeds of my sale. But what I didn't realize was that as the developer, if you buy, is fine when you have sold the property, but while you're still in the project, while you're trying to get it done, and once you've spent so much money, you can run into a period where you're strapped for cash, right? So when I talk about pairing up strategies and understanding strategies, it's about understanding that there's cash flow strategies that go alongside with your development or your long-term strategies. So me only having one idea as to this was going to be the way I was going to make money in property, that almost would have bankrupted me. And I know there were periods where I had extended myself so much in a deal that I was so nervous, because if anything had happened, either I wasn't able to get a sale, which on some occasions did happen, where maybe a sale came, I got the offer, but then the sale ended up taking longer, where it then made me feel, because at this point I already left my job, right? So it's not like, I have this backup plan. Before you leave your job, make sure you have a solid plan for ongoing cash. And I always say that what saved me was when I now discovered the whole rent to rent. That then made me be able to then tie up my development side, where I was doing all the refurbs and whatever, so that when I was strapped for cash, it didn't matter, because I had my rent to rent and my service accommodation that was bringing in good income. So just making sure that you have your strategies very clearly defined before you then quit your day job, which but yeah, so thank you, Viv. Thank you so much for coming on and for your nuggets, just dropping nuggets all day long. Thank you very much. I will definitely have you on for sure.
Thank you. Later.
Okay, speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.